have low vision, or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Chuck Stevens, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the Wednesday, June 17th issue of the Batavia Daily News here on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Our first story, Oakfield receives $1 million for infrastructure project from NBRC. Communities across upstate New York near the Canadian border, including Oakfield, are getting millions of dollars in federal support through the Northern Border Regional Commission, a cooperative federal and state entity dedicated to investing in the poorest areas of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Through the Commission's annual Catalyst program, which is a competitive program that provides funding for infrastructure investments such as water systems, telecoms, or energy projects, the Village of Oakfield has been awarded $1 million to replacing failing clay sewer mains, century-old water lines, and reconstruct streets in a corridor that functions as a critical conveyance link to Genesee County's Stamp Advanced Manufacturing Park. The project's objectives include increasing system capacity, improving fire protection, and unlocking 470 developable acres to accommodate workforce housing and local business growth. Now, the project has a $1.8 million local match secured. The project, with a total cost of $2.8 million, directly supports a regional job pipeline and ensures the village can participate in one of New York's most significant manufacturing expansions, officials said in a project description. The Catalyst program exists to stimulate economic growth and inspire partnerships that improve rural economic vitality across the four-state NBRC region, the Commission said in a program description. A total of 56 awards valued at $45.4 million were announced in the spring round of funding. Across the entirety of New York, more than $13 million was awarded in the latest round of Commission's grants. The state's federal representatives, including Senators Kristen E. Gillibrand and Charles E. Schumer, D. New York, and Rep. Claudia L. Turney, R. Cleveland, all lauded the Commission and took some credit for its continued work. These investments will address critical infrastructure needs, improve water and wastewater systems, support workforce housing, strengthen local businesses, and help communities prepare for long-term economic growth, Tenney said in a statement. This funding will make a real difference for families, employees, and local governments working to build stronger, more resilient communities. I will continue advocating for resources that deliver results for upstate and western New York. Said Gillibrand, these federal investments will support essential upgrades to aging infrastructure, expand child care access, create jobs, and drive economic growth across upstate New York. NBRC's investment will empower communities to improve their quality of life while encouraging economic development across our state. I will continue advocating for improvements that make upstate communities healthier and safer. The commission was created in 2008 and has been renewed by a vote of Congress twice, most recently last year for another 5 years. The Trump administration has proposed eliminating the commission last year, but Congress continues to provide funding for it. I've long fought to preserve and expand funding for the Northern Border Regional Commission so these projects can strengthen our infrastructure while creating good-paying jobs, Schumer said in a statement. I'm proud to deliver more federal funding to boost quality of life and help communities invest in a better future. The Northern Border region of New York State includes 30 counties: Cayuga, Clinton, Essex, Franklin, Fulton, Genesee, Greene, Hamilton, Herkimer, Jefferson, Lewis, Livingston, Madison, Montgomery, Niagara, Oneida, Orleans, Oswego, Rensselaer, Saratoga, Schenectady, Schoharie, Seneca, St. Lawrence, Sullivan, Washington, Warren, Wayne, Wyoming, and Yates. Our next story from the Batavia Daily News. For safety's sake, students watch DWI crash simulation at Batavia High School. June's a bit overwhelming when you're a teen. Proms, finals, and graduations emerge over a few short weeks, with summer vacation in a matter of days. It's exciting, but it can also be dangerous. Students gathered Tuesday morning outside Batavia High School as first responders conducted a DWI crash simulation. 2 wrecked sport utility vehicles sat in a lot with classmates portraying victims trapped inside. City and town of Batavia fire trucks arrived with sirens blowing. We want to emphasize the importance of not drinking and driving and making sure you have a ride, said School Resource Officer Connor Borchette, who led the simulation. You're going to see a fatality, a couple of people trapped. That's going to be a drunk driver. Can everybody hear me? Are we all good? The simulation portrayed a 2-vehicle crash involving 6 victims. Firefighters arrived at the scene and began assessing the injured, with police officers arriving about the same time. Officers conducted field sobriety tests and would later determine one of the drivers was under the influence. In the meantime, firefighters removed simulated victims for treatment by Mercy ambulance personnel, while a Mercy flight helicopter landed nearby. A city police detective took photos for evidence, and a hearse arrived to pick up the fatality shortly afterwards. Borchette advised the students that the simulation's time frame was condensed. Emergency vehicle and police typically don't arrive at the scene within minutes of a call. It takes time to rescue and treat victims, and the investigation can take hours. Assistant Genesee County District Attorney Robert Zickel described the criminal charges possible in a DWI accident, which can include up to 7 years or even 25 years in prison, depending on injuries, fatalities, and the driver's actions beforehand. Nobody intends to get in a crash, the official said, but one choice to drive can lead to a tragedy. It's always a concern, said Superintendent Jason Smith, as the students watched the simulation unfold. We always want our students to make the right choices. Every prom and graduation season that I've been involved with is always a wonderful and joyous time, but we always want to make sure students have the message. We want our students to have the right message and enjoy themselves responsibly and celebrate all they deserve to celebrate, he continued. Simulated victims with more serious injuries were taken to an ambulance and the waiting helicopter a few minutes after he spoke. Firefighter had to remove the roof from one vehicle while simultaneously treating the injured, which took more time. The consequences for the impaired driver were grim. As Zickel described, beyond years in prison, the crash would remain on his conscience. They are significant. They will change your life, and not for the better, he said. Don't kid yourself and don't be fooled. A person who is convicted of vehicular manslaughter in the 2nd degree, even if they're a good person, a good student, have never been in trouble, is very likely to go to state prison as a result. And I don't mean a local jail, he continued. I mean the New York State Department of Corrections. The driver at fault can carry a lifelong burden, Zickel said. That is a burden that does not go away for as long as you live, he said. Long after the legal part is done, long after the jail part is over, that's the burden you'll have every day for the rest of your life, and it's not worth it. He advised the students to be responsible, good friends and neighbors, and not to drive. If they've been consuming alcohol or drugs, then that includes marijuana. The driver and simulated victims were played by students including juniors Thomas Gaylord, Maddie Jones, Rachel Fairbanks, Kate Woodward, and Willow Roselle. They said they're in the school theater program, were asked to participate, and had fun with the experience. I think it's a very realistic experience that many teenagers could encounter and have encountered, Jones said. It's very tragic. Gaylord said something simple can end in tragedy. The classmates said alcohol and drugs remain an issue. Different generations, same experience, Gaylord said. Spreading awareness like this definitely helps, Jones said. Our next article, Glow counties receive federal funds for counterterrorism and emergency preparation. More than $400,000 in federal money is coming to the Glow region and its local governments to help them prepare for emergencies. Governor Kathy Hochul and some of New York's federal representatives announced June 10th that the latest round of Homeland Security Grant Program awards from the Federal Emergency Management Agency were making their way to local governments. The funding is designed to help communities prevent, respond to, and recover from man-made and natural disasters and emergencies and support operational readiness. A total of nearly $140 million was awarded statewide. Equipping New York communities with the resources needed to respond to emergencies is crucial to saving lives, Senator Christian Gillibrand, Democrat New York, said in a statement. This $140 million will support law enforcement and first responders in their critical work to prevent terrorism and natural disasters from harming our state. The GLOW region is set to receive $418,616 from 3 different grant programs. Orleans County will receive the greatest amount of funding, $173,871, the total boosted by a single grant award of $100,000. Livingston County is slated to receive $104,700, with Genesee County getting $84,869 and Wyoming County $55,176. The state is getting $38.2 million from the State Homeland Security Program, of which $29.82 million must be given to local governments. The 4 GLOW counties will receive $231,757 from that program. Genesee County set to get $61,618, Livingston County $80,732, Orleans $56,260, and Wyoming County $37,507 from the State Homeland Security Program. The program provides funding to prevent, protect against, respond to, and recover from acts of terrorism and other catastrophic disasters. New York is also getting $2.7 million from the annual Operation Stone Garden grant program, which seeks to boost enforcement capabilities for local governments along the northern border and partners them with federal, state, and other local and tribal law enforcement agencies for enforcement efforts. Orleans County is set to get $100,000 in Operation Stone Garden funding this year. Orleans is the only GLOW region county to receive funding. The Emergency Management Performance Grant will give $6.6 million across the upstate counties, helping to fund and improve their local emergency management departments. The funding assists efforts ranging from development and implementation of training and exercises to acquiring emergency response resources at the county level, including equipment, construction and renovation of emergency operations centers, and maintenance and sustainment of GIS and interoperable communication systems. GLOW counties will receive $82,859 in emergency management performance grant funding. Genesee County set to get $23,251, while Livingston County will receive $24,328, Orleans County $17,611, and Wyoming County $17,669. The state is also getting $92.2 million from the Urban Area Security Initiative Grant Program, which works with the New York City government and Nassau, Suffolk, and Westchester counties, the City of Yonkers, and the Port Authority, with 20% of the funding also going to state authorities for their own efforts within the immediate New York City region. With this funding, we are making sure our partners at every level of government have the training and resources needed to keep New Yorkers safe, Hochul said in a statement. We are grateful to our federal partners for their assistance in securing these grants to help make New York a safer and more secure place for all. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Batavia Daily News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. How to listen to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, lots of ways. One, on our free mobile app, downloaded at your Apple or Google Play Store, with easy access to the Listen Live stream, and of course your favorite podcasts. So our next article from the Batavia Daily News, a small town creativity, lifting up rural artists through state-funded fellowships. A voice for the little people, supported by her belief that an artist is an artist no matter where he or she lives. Longtime Wyoming County resident Linda Franca was the driving force behind the founding of the Rural and Traditional Arts Fellowship, now in its fourth year in partnership with the New York State Council on the Arts. And Franca continues to lead the program through her position as executive director of Shake on the Lake, a professional touring theater company based at theater at 37 in Perry that is administering the fellowship. Shake on the Lake's office sits just a couple doors down from Franca's former place of employment, the Arts Council of Wyoming County. In an interview with the Daily News on Monday afternoon, in anticipation of the RTAF exhibition from Thursday through August 8th at Genesee Orleans Regional Arts Council in Batavia, Franca talked about how the place-based project came together. I was a teacher for a lot of years, and then I worked in healthcare for a while, she said. And when I moved into the arts, my hardest question as we filled our grants was, what is your vulnerable population? My answer always is, we're a rural community, and most people didn't get that at the time. But Leanne Tintori, a former project manager at the New York State Council on the Arts, said, tell me more about that, and I loved that she did that. Franca said she and Tintori, along with Jackie Swaby, Go Arts Education Director, Gallery Curator, and former ACWC employee, had a lot of conversations asking, what does that look like? What does it mean to be a rural artist as opposed to an inner city artist or an artist that lives in suburbia? And then we pulled in some of our colleagues from other areas across the state. She said the goal was to create opportunities for all types of artists, painters, sculptors, writers, visual artists, musicians, photographers, poets, dancers, performers, and others who lived in communities with less than 25,000 in population to receive funds for a unique creation that, in a nutshell, hit home. If you're telling us a story about your life in that place right now, and you're expressing it through art, she said, and we do not limit the genre. The RTAF program issues 10 fellowships per year. Funding was obtained for 2023 and 2024, but not for 2025, Franca said. The program is on track for 2026, however. Honestly, I thought it might go away, but the fellows got together and said, let's figure out a way to make it work, and that's how this touring show came to be, so that we could get the word out and about what we're doing and get some needed funding, she said. Then NYSCA last summer called me up and said, hey, would you like to do that again? And I said, yes, I would. Each fellow receives $10,000 plus a travel stipend for his or her project. Artists submit an application with an online budget, which is forwarded to an anonymous panel that selects the winners. The deadline has been in February, but that date may change, Franca said. The artists whose works are on display at Go Art are from towns where there might not be other artistic opportunities available, she noted. You might not have the other artists around you, and you might not get support for doing your art. And we just want to really lift up those artists. Franca said that she took exemption to comments downplaying the work of rural artists. They would say, what do you mean, Linda? And I would say that I work with rural artists, she offered. And then they would say things like, well, I like real art, and it used to make my blood boil a little bit. And so now I feel like we're getting the word out that artists are everywhere. They're in the inner cities, they're in suburbia, they're in little teeny towns, they're out in the country. Artists are everywhere. For more information about eligibility, structure, and selection criteria for the RTAF, go to www.rtaf-newyork.org. Staying on the theme of artists, artists create pride installation around Geneseo's Bear Fountain. Driving down Main Street in Geneseo became much more colorful over the weekend. That's because a dedicated group of local artists and community members added a temporary rainbow pattern around the well-known Bear Fountain as a sign of support for those who identify as LGBTQ+ in the Genesee Valley. With approval from the village board, the chalk art project was spearheaded by Joanna Walters, co-owner of the gallery in the Valley, and Lauren Wadsworth, one of the gallery's resident artists and owner of a clinical psychology practice. Wadsworth was initially inspired by the mile-long pride flag created by artist Gilbert Baker that was unfurled in New York City in 1994 after she and Walters discussed various ideas and what they could do in Geneseo. They settled on using chalk to create a rainbow in a circular pattern around the Bear Fountain at the center of Main Street. Growing up here, I don't remember seeing anything related to pride displayed in this area my whole life, said Wadsworth. I know what the significance could be for kids in this area that might be having thoughts they don't understand or might feel scared that nobody would accept them. At least if they saw this rainbow, they'd know that there are people out there who will help them feel welcomed and accepted. With Wadsworth providing the initial inspiration, Walters then put a plan into action. We put the word out to people that we've come to know through the gallery and invited the crew in our art club group chat to come help out if they were free, said Walters. In order to avoid the heavy vehicular traffic Main Street sees every day, and to enhance the element of surprise, the artists worked overnight last Friday to complete the installation. As the clock approached midnight, about 15 volunteers met at the fountain with chalk at the ready. Time-lapse videos posted online by the gallery in the valley showed the crew carefully completing the artwork beneath the streetlights on Main Street. They trickled in and they filled in the rainbow really quickly, said Walters. It took less than an hour to do so. When a beautiful Saturday morning arrived with clear blue skies overhead, the piece added a brilliant pop of color to Geneseo's downtown. Although the artwork will likely be washed away by summer downpours, there was still plenty of time for Wadsworth and others to take pictures over the weekend and share them online. Area SUNY Geneseo alumni and others made their way to the fountain to snap their own pictures and to join in the fun. As of Tuesday morning, the installation still remains. The response was overwhelmingly positive, said Wadsworth. Some folks made jokes about how maybe the Bear Fountain would avoid getting hit because of it. Mostly, people both near and far were happy to see it, and lots of people, including those who are queer or have queer family members in the area, felt really proud to see it as an extension of our values. While the specifics of the art installation may change, Walters and Wadsworth plan to make this event an annual tradition every June, which is widely recognized as Pride Month. This was a community member initiative that the gallery was happy to support, said Walters, to put out a symbol to show support and love so that everyone feels welcome here. And the picture is beautiful in downtown Geneseo, with the colorful colors surrounding the fountain right in the middle of town. Our next article from the Batavia Daily News: Bailey announces office hours. Assemblywoman Andrea K. Bailey, Republican from Geneseo, has announced her upcoming mobile office hours through September. Mobile office hours gives residents the opportunity to meet with Bailey directly, share their ideas, and voice concerns on issues that matter most to them, her office said in a news release. Upcoming hours will include in Perry, 4 to 5:30 p.m. July 1st at Perry Town Hall on 22 South Main Street. In Covington, 5 to 7 p.m. July 14th at Covington Town Hall on 584 Perry Road. In Castile, 5 to 7 p.m. August 24th at the Cordiella A. Green Library on South Main Street. And in Nunda, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. September 22nd at Nunda Bell Memorial Library on 16 East Street. Bailey, a Republican from Geneseo, represents the 133rd Assembly District, which includes Livingston County along with portions of Wyoming, Monroe, Ontario, and Steuben counties. Our next community note: Independent Living plans Wyoming County Resource Fair. A Wyoming County Resource Fair will be conducted June 24th by Independent Living of the Genesee region. The event will take place 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Valley Chapel Free Methodist Church Ministry Center at 3415 Route 19. The Resource Fair will together and gather local organizations for a day of community interaction, information sharing, and access to helpful services. Attendees will have the opportunity to connect with community partners, gather information, and take home resources from organizations that serve Wyoming County and the surrounding communities. Participating organizations include Independent Living of the Genesee Region, Office for the Aging, Nutrition Outreach and Education Program, Healthy Families, Project READ, the Rochester Regional Health Moms Program, Community Action, and more. The event is free and open to the public. You can call 585-815-8501, extension 417, for more information. In another community note, the Scrap for the Pack Scrap Drive will support volunteers for animals this weekend. People can bring scrap metal 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Saturday and Sunday to the Genesee County Animal Shelter parking lot, 3841 West Main Street Road. Organizers are accepting metal of any kind, including railings, doors, garbage cans, file cabinets, bicycle frames, gutters, pipes, poles, fencing, window frames, lawn furniture, tools, shelving, washing machines, dryers, stoves, wheelbarrows, wagons, etc. Scrap service being provided by Ed Arnold EAS Scrap Processors of Corfu. Volunteers for Animals is a nonprofit organization dedicated to caring for the animals in Genesee County, including providing resources to assist animal care at the county's animal shelter. Check vol4animals.org for more information. Well, if you weren't sure that the train Big Boy was in the area, you were probably living under a rock. Nostalgia brings hundreds to Letchworth for Big Boy. Hundreds gathered at Letchworth Park on Thursday to view Union Pacific's number 4014 Big Boy locomotive cross over the Genesee Arch Bridge, with some railroad and history enthusiasts arriving before first light to secure a clear viewing spot. Clarence and Terry Davis of Rochester arrived at 5:30 in the morning to set up chairs and a camera in one of the Stonewall observation points, the most coveted spots for the Letchworth train observers. Clarence, a self-described train nut, has been interested in railroads since he was 5. It was then his parents gave him a Lionel train set, his very first. 60 years later, the hobby still holds his attention. He has about 1,200 square feet of space in his basement dedicated to model trains, and he helps out part-time in a hobby shop in Rochester called Dispatch Junction. He and Terry spent their career as truck drivers, and when they were on the road, they would find historic or interesting train-related places to visit. We've done some train rides, Terry said. Did a train ride out of New York City on the old New York Central. And of course, whenever we see trains or anything interesting, we would want to stop and get a picture, Terry said. The Davises have traveled to Union Pacific's Bailey Rail Yard in North Platte, Nebraska. The Bailey Yard there is over 8 miles long. It's a huge yard. Actually, it's the biggest rail yard in the United States, Clarence said. And they have a nice viewing tower, so you get to see a fair amount of it, said Terry. Despite their many other rail-related adventures, seeing the Big Boy close to home ranks highly for them. We were here to take pictures of the Big Boy. It's her first time being in New York since she made the trip out west in 1941. So this is a historic day, Clarence said. It's not going to happen again, not with this one anyway, he said. Al Ferriera of Warsaw felt the same way. He has a similar nostalgia about trains. He had toy trains as a child, but he also met a famous artist who had his own train. I actually grew up in Southern California, and 5 blocks from my house, Ward Kimball, he was one of the 7 original artists for Disney. He had a backyard railroad track that he had moved from Northern California to Southern California. I remember riding my bike one day, just past it, and I see this railroad track, so I went up, knocked on the door. I had no idea who he was at the time. I'm like 12, Fiora said. Kimball gave the young boy a tour of the trains and invited him to come back and play on them whenever he wished. So I've been a train fan ever since. For others, the nostalgia about trains is nothing compared to the awe one feels next to the raw power of steam engines. The Big Boy is just not a train. It's the epitome of steam locomotives, said John Bolenton, president of the Cobleskill Rail Heritage Museum. It is a different experience. It's like a living and breathing mechanical unit. It has so many moving parts, it seems like it's alive. Bolenton, a professional photographer, now working part-time, started the Cobleskill Rail Heritage Museum in 1984 with his father. I went there every week for 15 years. Then my dad passed away, and I took a 20-year break from it. And then I came back in 2021 and have been there ever since, Bolenton said. I always had that connection with trains with my dad, and the Club Museum is just a great outlet with a great bunch of guys, he said. Bolenton says he has taken thousands upon thousands of train photos over the years, but seeing the big boy at Letchworth Park to him is more than a mere photo op. For Bolenton, he hopes it will inspire the next generation of railroad enthusiasts. I'm hoping that this trip is going to really invigorate the youth and spark an interest in trains because it's really a great hobby, Bolenton said. Once you feel, see, and hear a locomotive like this, for a lot of people, it's like it's alive. It really does something to people, he said. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Batavia Daily News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Your reader, Chuck Stevens. How to listen to the Niagara Frontier Radio Service? There's lots of ways. The content is available on demand at all major podcast platforms like Apple Music or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Some police blotter news from the Batavia Daily News. In Darien, Jared E. Flaming, 39, of Genesee Street, charged with DWI after he was stopped for operating an all-terrain vehicle on a highway. June 4th, Genesee County Sheriff's deputies said. He also was charged with aggravated DWI for having a blood alcohol content of more than 0.18%, felony aggravated unlicensed operation, and no helmet. He is set to appear at a later date in town court. In Batavia, Jennifer D. Bueg, 40, of Holly, charged with DWI after she failed to stop for a stop sign on Park Road May 30th, Genesee County Sheriff's deputies said. She also was charged with aggravated DWI and is to appear at the later date in town court. In Darien, Justin C. Bailey, age 34, of Darien, was charged with 3 counts of endangering the welfare of a child. Genesee County Sheriff's deputies said no other details were released. In Alabama, Jamie E. Peters, 34, of Albion, was charged with DWI after she was stopped on Lewiston Road, according to Genesee County deputies. Peters also was charged with moving from a lane unsafely and aggravated unlicensed operation. In Bergen, a complaint about a person driving too fast through Hickory Park led to felony DWI charges for a Bergen man. Saturday, Genesee County Sheriff's deputies said. Blake Snyder, 31, was stopped at 10:22 p.m. and found to have a child in the car with him at the time. He was charged with felony aggravated DWI, DWI endangering the welfare of a child, and speed not reasonable and no seatbelt. In Batavia, Scott Lazzarani, 42, of Batavia, was charged with criminal possession of a weapon and tampering with evidence. He's accused of having an illegal handgun and discarding it during a city police investigation. Also in Batavia, Craig D. Brown, 45, charged with second-degree assault for assaulting and injuring another inmate at the Genesee County Jail, deputies said. He is to appear in court at a later date. Let's just jump over to the Batavia Daily News opinion page right now. From the Another View column, this is written by the Dallas Morning News. Trump's deranged Meet the Press interview. Our expectations for President Donald Trump's sense of decorum have never been high, but even by his standard, he's outdone himself. In an interview with Kristen Welker on NBC's Meet the Press that aired June 7th, the president managed to distort the facts of record, sling insults, and throw a spectacular temper tantrum unfitting of his office. Much of the first half of the interview danced as close to the edge of normal as Trump is likely to get, with Welker pressing the president on the Iran war. As politicians are likely to do, he dodged around and only sometimes answered questions directly, infusing his responses with his trademark pugnacious style. As the interview progressed, though, things went thoroughly off the rails. Trump defended his $1.8 billion slush fund intended to cover legal costs for people deemed victims of weaponization in lawfare, and said he wanted to get it approved. That led into a conversation about rioters who attacked the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, and whether Trump thought they should be able to get a taxpayer-funded payout, which the president seemed perfectly open to. People were destroyed by dirty cops and by weaponization. Many of those people should be compensated, Trump said. Trump claimed that those who pleaded guilty to assaulting police officers only did so because they were frightened into it. To pretend that the violence at the Capitol was a figment of the nation's imagination and that those who perpetrated it were in fact the real victims is as insulting as it is insane. Sadly, it's also not an unusual line to take in today's GOP. Later, Trump claimed that elections happening in California were rigged. Welker asked the president if he had any proof. "All I have to do is look, and I listen," Trump responded. It was shortly after this that the most powerful man in the world went on his temper tantrum, railing against the crooked press and all the negative treatment he gets in it. He made wild claims that Welker's network knows all about the election rigging and insulted her straight out. "You're either crooked or you're stupid," Trump said. He cut the interview off abruptly shortly thereafter. "Thank you, darling," he said to Welker in a sarcastic tone. In Trump's world, everyone is wrong if they do not agree with him and corrupt if they do not coddle him. The facts are fungible and history is as he tells it. Somehow we've reached a point where it isn't unreasonable to expect a toddler to behave with more decorum than the leader of the free world. Written by the Dallas Morning News. Next up from the Batavia Daily News, the opinion page, a commentary: social media polarized us. AI is about to make it worse. Well, if you're like me and have a lot of discussions with friends and families about AI, it's an interesting topic. A growing chorus of researchers and commentators is making a seductive argument that AI chatbots, unlike social media, push users toward expert consensus and moderate views. For example, a much-shared article from the Financial Times presented evidence that large language models elevate mainstream science and scholarship, in contrast to social platforms, which reward outrage and fringe voices. If social media is populist and polarizing, the argument goes, AI may be the antidote. We want this to be true, but we've spent years studying the forces that polarize Americans, including the role of social media, and the pattern we see emerging in the AI industry is unsettlingly familiar. Facebook introduced its first engagement-based algorithm in 2009, replacing a chronological feed with one sorted by popularity. Twitter and YouTube followed similar paths. In doing so, they sacrificed the potential of these platforms to connect people across divides in favor of a business model, namely advertising, that required maximizing the time users spent on their apps. That decision was fateful. The platforms didn't intend to polarize America. They intended to maximize engagement, and polarization was the byproduct. New research has shown that content associated with intergroup conflict and moral outrage is systematically amplified by engagement-based algorithms because divisive content captures attention and drives the engagement metrics that generate advertising revenue. These algorithms don't just show users polarizing content, they teach users to produce more of it. When a user posts moral outrage and gets rewarded with likes and shares, they learn to post more outrage next time. The consequences may include political shunning, and social media's engagement algorithms turbocharge this by representing extreme voices and making Americans believe their fellow citizens were more hostile than they actually are. There is, to be sure, exciting evidence that chatbots can push toward truth and away from toxicity. For example, they can reduce beliefs in conspiracy theories and shift partisan attitudes through active listening. But the excitement wilts once we recognize the crucial detail. Those findings describe chatbots that were deliberately designed to challenge users' views with evidence. If past is prologue, that is the opposite of what an engagement-optimized system would do. Even in their current form, AI chatbots possess a troubling design feature called sycophancy, the tendency to tell users what they want to hear rather than what is true. Multiple studies have documented this pattern across leading AI assistants, including in politically charged contexts. So the vision of AI as a neutral arbiter of expert consensus is already at odds with how those systems actually behave. But it is about to get much worse. In January, OpenAI announced it would begin testing ads in ChatGPT. By February, ads were live for hundreds of millions of users on the free tier. Within 6 weeks, the company's ad revenue surpassed $100 million on an annualized basis, with more than 600 advertisers signing up. Google has told advertisers it plans to bring ads to Gemini this year. Meta already uses data from interactions with its AI assistant to sharpen ad targeting across its platforms. OpenAI has been emphatic in its reassurances. Ads do not influence the answers ChatGPT gives you, the company wrote when it launched the program. Facebook said the same kind of thing about its newsfeed, that it simply showed users what most relevant. The reassurance, both then and now, misses the point. The issue is not whether an advertiser can directly alter a chatbot's response, but rather how a business model dependent on user engagement subtly bends design decisions towards maximizing time on the platform. Nobody decides to make the product more polarizing. The incentive structure rewards whatever keeps people coming back, and what keeps people coming back is rarely what challenges them. Layering advertising incentives on top of sycophancy produces a system primed to flatter users. Such flattery produces prolonged sessions that allow users to luxuriate in the validation of their pre-existing beliefs, even as they become further convinced of the idiocy of those who believe otherwise. Indeed, a chatbot trained to please and optimize for engagement has every incentive to validate a user's political grievances rather than offer the kind of firm, evidence-based pushback that the anti-conspiracy chatbot studies showed was effective. Some will argue that our analogy between chatbots and social media platforms is overdrawn, that chatbots are conversational tools, not social networks, but the issue is not technology, it is the business model. When the product is free and the revenue comes from advertisers, the money comes from capturing users' attention. This was true of broadcast television. It was true of social media, and it will be true of AI. We are not opposed to AI, far from it. The evidence we've cited suggests it can be a powerful tool for improving reasoning and reducing prejudice. But those benefits depend on what the chatbots are optimized for. The argument that AI is fundamentally different from social media, that it will elevate expertise rather than amplify outrage and moderate views rather than entrench them, is seductive precisely because we want it to be true. But that argument deserves scrutiny, not credulity. If anything, the case for skepticism is stronger here than it was for social media. Chatbots speak to us in the first person, adapt to our reactions in real time, and are trusted by users in ways that a Facebook feed never was. A technology that's persuasive, paired with an incentive structure that rewards flattery, is not a corrective to the problems of social media. It's a more potent version of them. Social media companies saw mounting evidence that optimizing for engagement fueled misinformation and eroded democratic health. They ignored it and pressed forward. We watched the consequences unfold in the fraying of social fabric. AI is giving us a rare second chance to scrutinize that decision before it hardens. The time for horizon for that scrutiny is running short. Written by William J. Brady, who is an assistant professor of management and organizations at Northwestern University's Kellogg School of Management. Eli J. Finkel is a professor of psychology and of management and organizations at Northwestern University. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Batavia Daily News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. How to listen to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service? There are lots of ways. Try our free mobile app. Download it at your Apple or Google Play Store. Has great easy access to the Listen Live stream and all your favorite podcasts as well. Next up from the Batavia Daily News, from the health page, is America's most popular cooking oil harming your gut? More than half of the oil consumed in the United States is heavy soybean oil, but studies link the ingredient to changes in gut bacteria, a weakened intestinal lining, and issues such as ulcerative colitis. For one study in gut microbes, researchers from the University of California at Riverside fed mice a diet high in soybean oil for up to 24 weeks. Then they measured disruptions in the animal's gut microbiome. Beneficial bacteria declined, while harmful bacteria increased, including adherent invasive Escherichia coli. This type of E. coli has been linked to inflammatory bowel disease in humans. Soybean oil is currently the most highly consumed cooking oil in the U.S. and the second most produced edible oil in the world, UC Riverside researchers wrote, and its increased consumption parallels the rise in IBD incidents in humans. The researchers focused on linoleic acid, the predominant fatty acid in soybean oil, found that excessive amounts of it can cause problems in the gut. Linoleic acid is an essential fatty acid, meaning it cannot be produced in the body, but is derived from foods. While people need to consume 1 to 2% of their fat from that acid, the average American diet derives 8 to 10% of its linoleic acid from soybean oil, UC Riverside researcher Phumpuat Diol told SciTech Daily. Harmful E. coli bacteria feed on linoleic acid, while excessive levels cause some beneficial bacteria to die off, they found. The excess linoleic acid also made the intestinal lining more porous, allowing toxins and microbes to leak into the blood, fueling inflammation. As an unsaturated plant oil, soybean oil is often viewed as healthier than saturated fats from animal products. But Diol and his colleagues said the issue is more complicated. Since studies showed that saturated fats can be unhealthy, it was assumed that all unsaturated fats are healthy, toxicologist Francis Hladick told SciTech Daily. But there are different types of unsaturated fats, some of which are helpful. For example, the unsaturated fat fish oil is well known to have many beneficial health effects. People therefore assume that soybean oil is perfectly safe and healthier to consume than other types of oils, without actually doing a direct comparison as we have done. While corn oil contains linoleic acid levels similar to those in soybean oils, the researchers said olive oil contains much less and has a well-established health profile. Avocado and coconut oil are similarly low in linoleic acid. A related study in Scientific Reports compared coconut oil, soybean oil, and a soybean oil product modified to have lower linoleic acid to assess their effects on mice. Unmodified soybean oil caused more disruption in genes tied to metabolism, immune function, gut barrier health, inflammation, and microbiome interactions they found, supporting the idea that excess linoleic acid may be an important factor. A third experiment published by the Journal of Lipid Research focused on soybean oil and obesity by measuring oxylipins, compounds the body makes when it processes linoleic acid. Mice that did not have soybean oil had lower levels of the related oxylipins, gained less weight, and were less likely to develop glucose intolerance or fatty liver disease. Soybean oil's neutral flavor, low cost, and versatility in large-scale food production have made it a more common ingredient than most people realize. But experts advise avoiding processed foods, checking labels, and using an air fryer, which uses very little oil, for similar results. Our next article from the Lifestyle page: Colorado firefly conservationists hope lab-raised insects can solve population declines. In Fort Collins, Colorado, as the last of the sunset pink hues disappeared from the sky, the Fort Collins field came to life. One flash appeared, then another. Suddenly, the entire nature preserve seemed to sparkle with the glow of fireflies. I grew up in Colorado, and I didn't even know we had fireflies here until I started working at the Butterfly Pavilion, said Alex Hahn, a 25-year-old entomology technician. Seeing them here for the first time blew my mind. Hahn was one of a small group of researchers trekking through knee-high grass in Fort Collins on Wednesday nights, searching for fireflies to capture as part of the pavilion's husbandry program. That program, which annually collects fireflies in the wild, is focused on learning under what conditions fireflies survive into adulthood and how to reintroduce lab-bred fireflies into the wild to help declining populations, said Francisco Garcia Bueno, the pavilion's director of research and conservation. Fireflies and indicator species are like a canary in a coal mine, said Dr. Ort Pellig, a 42-year-old associate professor at the University of Colorado Boulder, who studies Colorado fireflies. A strong population of fireflies is a sign of a healthy wetland habitat, she said. When they go away, because they're such a sensitive species, then that could be a sign that there are bigger issues, Pellig said. The research crew on Wednesday staked claim on a section of a boardwalk meandering through the protected wetland, settling down a cooler with miniature firefly habitats before venturing out in search of the glowing insects. The goal was to leave with 10 female fireflies and 40 males, Butterfly Pavilion Animal Well-Being Coordinator Mulaney Dodson, age 28, said. While the collection always happens in the same area, the timing has crept earlier and earlier, Dodson said. The Butterfly Pavilion schedules the fieldwork for roughly 10 days after the season's first firefly sightings to give the insects time to emerge and start breeding. Several years ago, that happened in early July. Bird calls and the buzz of insects filled the air as the team coaxed fireflies off plants and scooped them from the ground in clear cups, at one point even snatching one out of midair before transferring them into the mini habitats, where they will remain undisturbed for several weeks as the fireflies mate and lay eggs. Butterfly Pavilion scientists captured Colorado fireflies for the first time in 2021 and have done so each year since, hatching hundreds of eggs during the breeding process. According to Garcia, only 5 of those have grown into full adults. These numbers are still amazing because it means that we are able to get them into adulthood. It's not that easy, Garcia Bueno said. Understanding the best conditions for raising fireflies is vital for protecting the species, Garcia said. Unfortunately, insects are decreasing, and this is a big concern. That's why the Butterfly Pavilion's work is now so important. We can support these populations, which are basically the foundations of most life on Earth. The glowing creatures could exist in many places across Colorado, but researchers can't visit them all. Instead, they rely on confirmed sightings from community members and head out into the field to check for themselves, Pellig said. Researchers still aren't sure how many kinds of fireflies live in Colorado, but our lab has identified at least 3 species from flash patterns and DNA testing. Fireflies in general exist as flashing adults for about 2 weeks out of the entire year and only flash for a couple of hours every night, Peleg said. To see them, you need a really dark environment because their flashes are very dim and super easy to miss. Other states where wetland habitats are more plentiful may have dozens of different species, Peleg said. The firefly population in Colorado is much more rare and precious, she said. We're just really trying to document it as much as we can and understand them as much as we can while they're still here. Garcia Bueno said claims that this may be the last generation to see fireflies might be a bit dramatic, but noted that populations appear to be decreasing across the globe. Colorado scientists haven't been able to identify any population patterns at the state level because of insufficient data, Peleg said. There aren't enough years of research to work with, and researchers are just starting to map out the state's firefly populations properly, she said. However, Peleg said she is particularly concerned about fireflies in drier climates like Colorado because the insects are already few and far between compared to the tropics. In the butterfly pavilion, if the butterfly pavilion can crack the code to breeding fireflies in captivity by figuring out the perfect conditions to raise them under, it can create a conservation bank, Garcia Bueno said. He said conservation banks already exist for various plant species. Seeds are placed into protected storage and can be replanted if a plant's wild population is lost, and wants to do the same thing for fireflies by rearing specimens in the lab that can be reintroduced to the wild if these populations decline or disappear. Last year, his team closed the cycle for the first time by successfully mating a lab-reared firefly with males captured in the wild. Georgia was born in the lab. She bred in the lab. She laid eggs in the lab, Garcia Bueno said. That's a huge milestone for the whole program. Let's take a look at some horoscopes quickly. If you're a Gemini, May 21st through June 20th, a personal change awaits you. Start conversations with people who have something to offer, or those in an authoritative position who can guide you forward, making sure you understand the rules and regulations. Cancer, June 21st through July 22nd, set priorities and high standards and follow through with your plans. Dreaming is not the same as delivering. Don't limit what you can do because you're too busy trying to get even with someone. If you're a Leo, July 23rd through August 22nd, gather information and participate, and you'll broaden your comprehension of what's possible and expand your plans to meet your demands. You're overdue for a change. Virgo, August 23rd through September 22nd, keep busy. Catch up and make room for the people and pastimes that make you happy. Expand your interests and your vision, and test your strengths and weaknesses. Libras, September 23rd through October 23rd, attending social events, engaging in flirtatious banter, and exploring the possibilities of forming a unique partnership with someone who has as much to offer as you do will inspire you to gain momentum. Scorpio, October 24th through November 22nd, refuse to let trivial matters, gossip, or emotional conversations stand in your way or ruin your day. Put your energy into research and expanding your knowledge, experience, and connections to those who have something to offer. And we'll take a look at Sagittarius, November 23rd through December 21st. By directing your energy into lifestyle improvements and a less indulgent and more rhythmic and regimented routine, you'll begin to make steady gains that boost your awareness regarding what's possible. To a reading of articles and features from the June 17th issue of the Batavia Daily News. We read from the Batavia Daily News every Saturday at 9 a.m. Your reader has been Chuck Stevens. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the East Aurora Advertiser. At 11 o'clock, we have the Niagara Gazette. And at noon, we have the Dunkirk Observer. Stay with us for these readings and more throughout the day. Radio Reading mails out a large print program schedule to our listeners every other month. If you have not received a Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service large print program schedule in the mail, please call us at 716-821-5555. We will make sure that you receive one every other month. A Braille version of the schedule. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability.